We're gathered here today to talk about religion and interfaith work, kind of in the context of the Millennial Values Symposium and the election.
I think the first is by looking at the survey results, especially in regards to what millennials said in affiliation with candidates' religious ideology. When it came to asking millennials what religious affiliation that they would be comfortable with in their candidates, it was surprising for me to see that so many millennials said that they would be uncomfortable with a Muslim president, a Mormon president, or an atheist president, while at the same time, about half of millennials said that they weren't too concerned with the religious affiliation of a candidate. So that to me was an interesting paradox when thinking about interfaith relations in our generation and the way that we see our candidates.
It's also important to find out why that prejudice is so high. Because I remember in the last symposium we asked questions about what do people think about Christianity, and it was say whether you think this describes Christianity. So some of them were positive, teaches the same values as other religions, has good morals, stuff like that, or negatives like hypocritical, judgmental, and we saw a pretty good divide on those things. So I think it'd be interesting to see why people have such a high negative approval rating of atheists, Mormons, and Muslims. It might be because they don't know enough about the religion, or what they do know is actually not correct.
So I mean, that would be a case of religion affecting politics. But I think a large issue around this interfaith or religious understanding in the context of election is something that E.J. Dionne mentioned yesterday, is now we have politics affecting religion. And I think that also, where that applies here is we have a perception issue, both in individual religious faiths and interfaith religious collaboration.
And there's also a lot of issues that people bring up with the idea of interfaith work. Some people say that if you're involved in interfaith work, then it will dilute your own personal faith, that you can't be strong in your own faith if you're working with people of other faiths, or that it's just kind of a hippie movement of kumbaya, that everyone is saying we're all alike and we all are the same, but actually interfaith work can be so much more meaningful than that. We can engage, and I think you used the word or the phrase earlier, engage our differences, and actually kind of understand each other better and strengthen our own faiths through seeing the differences that we have.
Regarding the fact that so many millennials are moving towards religious unaffiliation, I think it's important to remember that interfaith activism and cooperation includes those who identify with no faith or a more secular perspective, and oftentimes that's forgotten. And given that our generation led the Occupy movement and came out in such staggering numbers in the '08 election, I think that it's interesting that we do have the propensity to come together on a thread of common values and shared sort of beliefs and convictions, even though we are so different.
And that's going to be key for future collaboration. Issues are faith blind, if we can say that, taking off of a colorblind parallel. Issues are faith blind. Whether you're a Christian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Zoroastrian, human rights are human rights. Religious freedom is religious freedom. These social issues that we have to deal with as a human race are faith blind, and I believe those can be the core of interfaith collaboration. So then, if we're going to take this to application and sort of a conclusion, what are some steps we can take? What are some things that we can do to move this into impact?
I think the first would most definitely be efforts made directly to our peers, starting directly in our campus communities, sharing with our peers that there is a set of shared values and common interests that we can collaborate around, and understanding that those common values can help us reach common goals. I think that that's going to be most important, and that happens, I think, first by beginning with religious literacy. I think the reason why the survey results highlight a level of uncomfortability with a faith tradition in a candidate that isn't necessarily the majority belief system in this country is because there's a lack of understanding across the spectrum about different faith traditions. So really efforts at increasing dialogue that increases knowledge to promote pluralism is going to be the first step. but also understanding that on that same note, we've got to be taking action and doing something constructive with those set of shared values.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with that. Religious literacy is so important, and just the fact of dialogue, getting people to actually meet people of other traditions and stuff, because studies have proven that when you actually have personal contact with someone who's the other, well, whether it be LGBT or Muslim or any other tradition, then suddenly you become way more accepting of them because it humanizes the religion for you.
So in terms of dialogue in general, I think going back to the election, how polarized our electorate is right now, if we can get people to dialogue about something as divisive as religion and that's created like violence, that's like a one way we can get our country back on the track towards dialogue. In the past couple of years has kind of disappeared and we've lost that idea. But if we can really make this a mainstream conversation that we have around issues of difference, that can cut across lots of things and help solve a lot of the problems we have right now. And I think as our generation, it's our job to really make that more of a mainstream conversation and make it more consistent. Like, I completely agree with what you say. The only way we can make this like a part of the mainstream is to make it like sustained over a long period of time and to engage as many people as possible around these issues.
Sure. Great.